Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money and taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well, then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. There's probably some subject out there that just inherently makes you anxious, that you've never really learned before or that you just never explored. And just the sheer fact that you don't know much about it already makes you nervous. And yet you really have no intention of learning any more about it. And there's nothing you're doing about it. And for a lot of people, that is money, that is investing, that is their finances. So the reason why I have this show and my guest today is running her business is because we understand that. And we know that it's not really an easy thing to talk about money or to ask the right questions or to show up with a curious mindset around money when you really have no idea what to ask. You have nearly no idea what's going on. And we're completely compassionate to that. And today, I'm really excited to welcome Chloe Daniels to the show. And she is better known as Clo Bare Money Coach on Instagram. She's hilarious. We connected on Instagram and I immediately was like, oh my God, I have to have you on the show because she's just such a fun-loving and chill person who you could literally go have a glass of wine or a beer with and chat about anything, including money. So I'm really excited to have her on the show and have you hear a bit of this conversation. We go into the mindset around money, what can help make someone more curious around investing, some of the basic things that we recommend for investing. And we even go into our predictions on AI and how that's going to be playing a role in the future in robo-advising and how people are going to be investing based on maybe asking AI questions. So we're going to talk about all these things and more. So a little bit about Chloe. She is the founder of Clo Bare Money Coach and the Lazy Investors course. She's a money coach focused on helping people learn how to invest and build wealth without shame or judgment. She's been featured on multiple outlets like CNBC, Acorns, Business Insider, Time, Entrepreneur, and Bloomberg. And her ultimate goal is to provide education in a fun, easy to understand, and accessible way. She's known for Reels and TikToks and just her fun presence on social media. So if you're not already following her, definitely give her a follow at Clo Bare Money Coach. And let's listen to this interview with Chloe. Hey, Chloe, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello. How's it going?
It's going really well. How about you?
Good. It's been a little bit chaotic these last couple of weeks. I was like running around trying to figure out how to make these headphones work right before this call. And I was like, it has to happen. And then I'm sitting on the floor of my boyfriend's bedroom and my dog's just like staring at me. So that's where we're at.
As most podcasts are, as most podcast recordings are. Don't be fooled by pristine audio, guys. We're usually in closets, basements, God knows what. And where are you right now? Because you mentioned before we hit record that you were traveling.
Yeah, so I've been a digital nomad for about a year now, which is good and bad in many ways for the person who actually really loves routine. But I'm currently out in the Chicago suburbs because I'm hanging out with my boyfriend, and he's in a place that was voted the most boring place to live in Illinois, but safest.
Okay. Most boring place to live in Illinois. I wonder what the most boring place in the United States is. We need to look that up.
Well, and I can't remember if it was the United States or if it was just Illinois. It might have been the United States, which would be really kind of impressive.
Nice. So instead of doing anything else, here we are. You're recording a podcast because you're in the most boring
I was like,
place.
Shannon, you want to do this today? Yes, sign me up. It'll be the highlight of my day.
So, Chloe, tell our listeners kind of who you are, and we'll go from there because I know I have a ton of questions for you.
Yeah, so I'm Chloe. I am better known as Clo Bare Money Coach on the internet, and I am a money educator. I really focus on teaching people about investing, specifically investing the lazy way, which is suitable for a lot more people than the traditional ideas of investing. I think a lot of people, when I ask people on like webinars and things like that, what they think of when they think of investing, almost immediately their first answer is like Wolf of Wall Street. Yelling and screaming, suits, white dudes on a floor. Like that's what I always hear. And I'm like, okay, there's another way. Let me show you the other way. And it's not very complicated. So that's what I try to do, is make really complicated, or things that seem very complicated, break it down and make it more accessible to the average Joe.
And where does Clo Bare come from?
So Clo Bare actually started as a mental health blog way back in 2017. It was a blog that nobody read. All the mental health blogs and stuff like that are still on the blog. But Clo Bare is something my mom used to call me, was Chloe, like Clo Bare, but Bear. She'd always call me Clo Bare. And then when I had just finished reading You're a Badass by Jen Sincero.
Mm.
And in it, I was like, man, I got to do something. I was getting that fire. I was like, I just need to do something that gives me more purpose. And at the time, I was going through some pretty tough mental health stuff. I was starting trauma therapy. I was doing all of these things. And I was like, I'm just going to start a blog chronicling my mental health struggles and journey. And I'm going to call it Clo Bare, because I'm being very bare about the process. I'm talking about things that I don't see a lot of people talking about. And that's where it started, was actually from the mental health perspective. And then slowly, as my mental health and personal growth really started to change, I couldn't ignore the fact that my money was stressing me out, causing me a lot of anxiety, making me feel trapped, all of those things. So eventually, Clo Bare decided, let's also tackle this part of my life, because I'm all about owning my own crap and fixing it. And it was like, well, if you're all about that, you gotta tackle this too.
Yeah. And I think that there's a misconception that, credibility stems from, having the perfect everything, the perfect upbringing, being educated on all this stuff, and then being able to educate other people. But it's like, no, part of that is the vulnerability and the journey that adds the credibility and also adds the trust too. So educators, consultants, coaches who go through their own journey, it's so important to be able to share that, because it's going, hey, I was you and I can get you where I'm at, so that you're not just way ahead and saying, yeah, it's fine, you can make it. And it's like, but did you walk this path? Did you take this journey? And I think that sharing that is so powerful.
Well, exactly. I mean, especially when you think of who traditionally was educating, and I use air quotes with educating folks on their finances, it was financial advisors. It was people, maybe a CFP if you had the, ability to work with one. And again, even financial advisors, a lot of people don't have the ability to work with them, or even the wherewithal to know whether or not that's a good option. And these are people who may not have struggled, who may not have ever had the experience of getting out of $100,000 of student loan debt while living off of a wage that hasn't changed in 20 years. So to be able to see yourself in someone else and realize I can do this too, I think it really is powerful. Especially people are always surprised to be like, wait, you studied English and Spanish in college? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm telling you. This stuff is not that complicated. If I can figure it out, somebody who was allergic to math, you absolutely can.
Absolutely. Fun fact, I minored in Spanish and wanted to be a Spanish teacher. That was my my goal.
No way. I love that. And now you're in Costa Rica, so I'm sure your Spanish is fantastic.
Yes, we're making use of it finally. I've been able to use Spanish in every phase of my life, intentionally, from working at McDonald's to Zumba instructor and now living in Costa Rica. It's been super useful. So can't say enough how much I'm so grateful for that education, not only my financial one, but that.
Yes, yeah. I definitely I never use it. So I'm like, I will sound like the biggest gringo ever. You would never know I studied Spanish for 8 years.
Amazing. So let's talk about how your money coach business is going and how you're helping clients drive results. What are the key things that you're helping clients achieve so that we can kind of place, how what Chloe does for her clients?
Yeah. So, I mean, my bread and butter right now is taking somebody who knows literally nothing about investing or what a Roth IRA is or how to manage their money, and going through my Lazy Investors course, which is the only way to work with me right now. And at the end being like, holy crap, I know this stuff now. I know what I'm doing. I enjoy analyzing funds. I can't wait to allocate my portfolio to a way that makes sense for me. And it's like when I get those messages on the last module or in the community when people have finished, I'm always just like the exclamation points and the all caps and like all the like excitement that is coming from these people, because I remember what it was like to figure it out for myself as well. Like going from feeling like an idiot, feeling like everybody else has it figured out except for me, to being able to very easily manage my own portfolio, know exactly what I'm doing, having all my investments on autopilot, knowing I'll be able to retire someday. Like, it's the amount of relief and peace that has given me. It's huge. And just also this like power of just being like, wow, I thought this was a huge thing that I would never be able to figure out, but I have it figured out. So that's really what I focus on, is like transforming you from feeling like this ain't for me, I'm not a finance person, I can't figure this out, to hell yeah. And one of my favorite quotes from one of my students was, she's like, yeah, I just loved that learning how to invest is a language and now it's my language. I was like,
Oh, I love
hell
that.
yes, that's everything I want to hear. So that's the big focus right now. The other thing that I will be focusing on later this year is adding to the curriculum of just like general money management, because especially with that's what I started with, is when I was doing one-on-one coaching, I was really focusing on the money management side of things, the debt payoff, the how do I budget, how do I create a spending plan that I will actually stick to. And I kind of moved away from that a little bit as I got so into investing, just because I really enjoy that part. But in recent months, with fears of a recession and fears of all of those things going on, it just really highlighted how important the money management part is as well, in order to even be able to get to the point where you're like, ooh, I want to invest and I'm excited about investing. So that will be coming up as well. We'll be launching a boot camp soon for the money management side of things. And yeah, right now it's just about making people feel more powerful with their money and just relieving that stress.
I love it. And what you mentioned, investing the lazy way, which I love. What does that
Mhm.
mean to you? Because I know that that can sound very like tongue in cheek, like it's kind of like invest the lazy way. Like, isn't kind of like the point is to not be lazy about your money? Like, tell me what that means to you.
Yes. So I would say that the only time we are really rewarded for being lazy is through lazy investing. So lazy investing is this idea that you can set up your investments to work for you so that you don't have to work as hard, and they're going to do their thing. They're going to grow and continue to work hard for you for the rest of your life, but all you had to do was set it up. You don't have to pay attention to what the stock market is doing on a daily basis. You don't have to try and time when to buy, when to sell, all of those things. You can set it up and essentially forget it for long periods of time. The
Hmm.
reason that that is key is that, one, we're probably not going to do it if it's hard. We're
Right.
not going to take the time. I mean, most of us who haven't started investing by our 30s or 40, it's probably partially because we think it's hard, we think it's complicated, we think it's going to be time consuming. And it's like, okay, once you remove all of those objections and you realize, no, actually, it's not hard, it's not time consuming, you can make it this lazy automated thing, that's going to make it a lot easier for somebody to actually do it. And
Right.
then the other thing is, it is research backed that if you are a buy and hold and lazy investor, the chances of you losing money long term almost completely disappear after 15 years.
Right.
If I think I can't remember if it was the BlackRock study. I think it was the BlackRock study that looked at the stock market, the S&P 500 specifically, over about a 100-year period. And they found that if you had just bought and held on to the S&P 500 index fund, by year 15, you had a 99.8% chance of making money and only a 0.2% chance of losing money. And then other studies, like the measure of a plan, showed that after 20 years, you had no chances of losing money. And the most money you would have made was only like 0.5%. So
Wow.
it's just, not only is it easy, but it's effective as well. And a lot of what we think investing is that buying and selling and that timing the market and waiting to see when an investment goes down or when it goes up and when you should sell it. Not only is that a lot of time and a lot of energy, it's also really ineffective, because it's
Mm.
very, very, very difficult to know at any given time what the best performing stock is going to be, what this one particular company is. I mean, had you asked people 2 years ago what would have happened with Tesla stock in 2021 and 2022, I'm sure they wouldn't have expected that you'd see the level of volatility that we're seeing with like just even Tesla stock, or even if you
Right.
look at Facebook. I mean,
Right.
can you remember the best performing stock of 2020?
No.
Nobody can. If you go look up the best performing stock of 2020, it's like some random company that no one has ever heard of. And
Yeah.
that's because it's like we think we're more capable than what we actually are, but there are
Yeah.
so many things that affect the stock market that we're not in control of. And so it's much easier to just buy the entire market.
I would agree with that. And it's basically gambling. It's like,
It
what if you
is.
could,
And
what if you could just like play the whole casino? It's like, instead
yeah,
of picking
right.
one slot machine, it really is just like, because I say hedging because I know the lingo, right? But it's all
Hmm.
about balancing out the risk and balancing out,
Hmm.
I would rather for sure make a certain percent return than risk all of my money, and it is investing the lazy way. It is investing in a kind of a safer way. But I think a lot of people interpret it as this like gambling with your money when you put it in the stock market. And I think
Right.
to some degree it is if you're putting all your eggs in one basket. But I think that
Correct. Well, and
you can control that.
that's the thing, is to be able to have a very well diversified portfolio, buying single stocks or buying any kind of single investment. It's difficult. You would have to buy so many of them. Whereas if you just purchase one total stock market index fund, you have every single stock in the US, which is thousands of stock. The amount of time it would take for you to individually buy each one of those stocks, it's ridiculous. It's ineffective. It makes no sense. Why would you even do that? So it's easy, which I think people stick to when it's easy. It's effective. But I will say it takes time. A lot of people want an answer that will make them ridiculously wealthy in a year or two. And that's not going to be index funds or lazy investing. That's why I really
Mm.
focus on folks who are like, I just want to be able to retire someday. I want to make
Yeah.
sure that I'm set and I'm not reliant on, my children or Social Security or something
Right.
along those lines. So yeah, I always tell people, it's like, I think everyone needs index funds in their portfolio, but if you decide based off of your risk tolerance that you're okay betting some of your money on individual stocks because you want to grow your wealth quicker or whatever it is, that's fine as long as you understand the risk you're taking on. That's my
Exactly.
big thing.
Yeah.
All I want to do is educate people on their options. And I fully recognize that I'm biased towards index funds, but I want folks to make educated decisions. That's it.
I think it's a great starter investment because it's like, if you don't know, I believe in investing what you know about, like what you
Mm-hmm.
can reasonably research, and you can explain. So if you can't
Mm-hmm.
explain how this stock is going to rise or why you're buying it, because why you're predicting it's going to rise, if you don't have that level of insight or analysis, then I say, then default back to betting on the market overall, because that's
Yes.
probably going to serve you unless you have a specific skill that you can leverage in buying those individual investments. And I just truly believe in this whole like, you have to invest what you can explain and what you believe in. So if you
Mm-hmm.
understand
Yeah.
it and you're educated in it, I think you're qualified to invest in it. But what I see a lot of people doing is investing money in things they don't understand at the hope that if this person invested in this and then I invest in it, I should get the same result as that person. And I'm like, but
Right.
it's very different because that's a different person with a different skill set, different knowledge, different experience. And it's going to
Yes.
sound very funny to you that like, to you listening that, like, well, why would I get a different result than that person? And here's what I love about what you just described with your course is that it's about transforming the person from like a
Mm-hmm.
non-investor to an investor. It is not about taking a non-investor and telling them what to do and telling them where to
No.
put their money and telling them the tactics. It's like, no, before you learn the tactics, I need to put you in a position where you want to learn the tactics and you understand what
Mhm.
you're learning so that it's not just regurgitating a cookbook of stuff. I'm actually teaching you how to cook. I'm not just giving you the
That's the
recipes.
thing. 100%. Because it's like, I don't want you to need me. I don't want you
Right.
to need me in 5 years. I don't want you to come back and say, well, what do I do now? And
Yeah.
the thing too is, number one, I don't want to take on that level of risk. I'm not taking on that kind of liability. Like if you decide to go out and buy something that isn't a right fit for you, because it's the thing, that's the thing that frustrates people in Instagram and TikTok. They're always like, well, what do I buy? What investment do I buy? And it's like, I don't know you. I don't know your portfolio. I don't know how
Right.
close you are to retirement. I can't tell you that this is the perfect fund for your portfolio. Even with the S&P 500, it's like you have to learn how these impact your portfolio, how these
Mhm.
impact, or how your timeline is going to impact the investments you choose so that you can make an educated decision on what's right for you. So
Right.
it is, it's just that it's the whole like teaching somebody how to fish versus,
Yeah.
teaching them or make, catching the fish for them or whatever it is. Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to say too about like when people are like, "Ooh, this person bought this, so I'm going to go buy this," specifically in relation to like individual stocks or crypto, is there's so many pump and dump schemes out there. If you're
Mm.
in a Discord group, if you are in something that there is somebody, an unlicensed person telling you what to buy, first of all, it's not legal. They can't tell you what to buy if they are not a financial advisor, if they don't have any licensures. So that's a first red flag. Secondly, you have to be aware of scams. There was just a huge scam that came out with a bunch of influencers who were running a very elaborate pump and dump scheme, which for those who are listening are like, what is a pump and dump scheme? It's essentially they're telling you, ooh, we think this stock is going to do really well. They've got hundreds of thousands of people in their Discord and they're like, here's why you should buy it. Here's why it's a buy. They wait for all of their followers, their hundreds of thousands of people to buy. And then what do? As
Sell
soon
it.
as that stock price goes up, they sell it because they knew this was going to be artificially inflated by the people that they're telling to buy. And then
It's
they get
GameStop.
out and then exactly. And then
It's GameStop.
all of those people who with a couple of extra layers of complications because of like the calls or what was it? What was it that it was like call options or something? That's a whole other level of
Yeah, I
like,
know collar put options, but like,
yeah, I
yeah,
can't remember what it was, but essentially that's what it is. It's like you're artificially raising the value of this stock, but it's going to go back to normal. It's going to return to whatever it is. And all those people who invested that money into it, they're going to lose money because they only bought because this person said, and the person only told you to buy it because they wanted to make money off of you.
right. And unfortunately that's way too common that people
Mm-hmm.
will do that because it serves them. And there's, I mean, that's why it's so important to get good financial advice. Now, here's the ultimate question, Chloe. How does
Mm-hmm.
someone discern who they work with, like what type of advice they're getting? Because I'll tell you, and I understand the struggle because even in accounting, taxes, and all that stuff, it's like, who do I listen to? Because this person over here is telling
Oh,
me
for sure.
aggressive, 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 and that your person's being too conservative. And then the person over here is like, they're going to get you in trouble. And it's like you're torn between these two sides of, well, like, where
Oh,
do I want to
so
be?
true.
Yeah.
One, who do you trust and how do
Who do
you
I
know like
trust?
what's a scam, what's not a scam? It really is it is difficult. I think that when someone who knows nothing about you is telling you a specific thing that you need to buy, that should be a red flag. If they don't know anything about you and you've never interacted with this person, and even if you have in a minimal way, you need to be careful because not every investment is right for every person. So, somebody who is telling everyone to buy this one thing, you've got to be careful with that. That should be an immediate red flag. And that is why I will never make a specific investment recommendation. I will never
Mm,
say, "Oh, you know what? You can just buy the S&P 500 VTI, call it a day, or VOO, call it a day. Like you're fine." I'm never going to do that because I don't know anything about you and I want you to learn how to understand that stuff so you can decide what the best thing is for you. So, I mean, it's so funny as I'm talking, I'm like, well, somebody could say, well, then she's just trying to scam you. I'm not going to ever be able to pump and dump the S&P 500. Like it's not possible.
exactly. But like, you're not getting any
um,
kickbacks from anybody over here. And
No, it's not. But
no,
the individual stock world, you can. So I think that that's
right.
the biggest red flag is to pay attention to what they're telling you, because if this person has no information, it's impossible for them to recommend really anything to you. You have to pay attention to who is focused on educating, who is focused on helping me understand
Mm-hmm.
what I am purchasing or what I want to purchase or what I should be looking for when I go to purchase something. That's, I think, the big difference is you've got to look for education, and it's very helpful to get multiple perspectives on education, on like, you shouldn't just blindly follow one person or understand one person. Now, that's on the like influencer side of things. In terms of like who to work for, who to trust on the professional side of things, I almost always recommend in every scenario, not even almost always, if you decide, even after educating yourself, even after like, doing a course or spending time reading and learning about how the stock market works, that you still just really want a financial advisor, make sure they're a fiduciary. Make sure they're not working under the suitability clause, because you need somebody who's going to do whatever it takes to make sure the investment that they pick for you or decide is best for you is actually best for you. With all the information that they have, they're trying to pick the best thing for you. Now, that is not a guarantee, unfortunately. Even with a fiduciary, it is not a guarantee that it actually is the best thing for you, because they're going to take information that you give them and then create a portfolio that they think is best for you, that they think is acting in your best interest.
Right.
But if you go in there and you're like, I'm terrified of investing and I'm so scared about losing any money, and then they put you in a 50%, 60%, 70% bond portfolio, even though you're only 25 years old, well, the notes that they have on you talk about how terrified you were about losing money. And even though that may not be an actual best portfolio for you, they got to make sure they're not getting sued. So that's why it's like, in best case scenario, work with a fiduciary, make sure they are fee only, don't do assets under management, and try, when you feel uncomfortable, when somebody is trying to push a product onto you that you don't understand, that is a red flag. Whole life insurance, IULs, permanent life insurance policies, all of those things. If you feel like somebody's trying to push something like that on you, that should be a red flag. Your financial advisor, your CFP, whoever you're working with, should want you to understand this stuff. And if they don't, then they're probably not the right person for you.
I would totally agree with that. And a lot of people I've talked to, a lot of folks listening to this, don't like it's this line between, I don't really want to learn this stuff. I don't want to become an expert, right? Like I don't have no desire. It's me and like learning what is under the hood of my car. I get it. I'm like, I don't have any effing idea, and I just want to pay a mechanic to deal with it. And I don't understand this. I'm never going to learn it. And I'm okay with that. Now, here's the thing though, with your money, it's a little bit different. I feel like you can't completely hand over the keys and lock yourself in the trunk and tell someone else to drive. It's just not going to happen, because then you're not going to like where you end up. And I fully believe that we all have a responsibility to do some type of baseline minimal financial education, which unfortunately our education system does not provide. And I think that people have to open their minds up to the idea that I need to learn just enough, and I need to just be a curious mind around these things, because people who shut it down and go, I don't understand this stuff, I don't understand my money, I don't understand this. I go, what are you avoiding? And what is that going to cost you in the long run? Like, are you okay with leaking out all this money, paying other advisors who are probably not doing anything for you? And it's an unfortunate situation, but like a lot of people identify with that, I don't even want to look at this stuff. And I think that's where you come in with that transformation aspect of like, we just want to turn you into curious investors who are open to learning.
100%. I do agree with you in that everyone needs to have some base level of knowledge. And I even say that in my community, as I'm like, if you go through this course and you still want someone to manage your finances for you, which most don't, most of them end up firing their financial advisor if they have one. I go, this is still going to be worth it, because you will then be able to know what your advisor is doing. Yeah. You need to be able to see, is this even remotely in my best interest? And it's like, from some of the things that even just my clients have done, they've saved themselves hundreds of thousands of dollars by deciding not to do stuff. There's been advisors who have not invested their money. There's been advisors who only invested 50% of their money. There's been advisors who have forgotten to reinvest dividends. There have been and these are massive mistakes, massive. We're talking about $500,000 mistakes over a 30-year period, if not more. And so it's like the realization that by investing the $500 now, they're saving $500,000 over the long term in a risk-free way, because there's, if you go through the course and you're like, this wasn't it for me, I'm like, I'm not going to make you pay me. I'll give you your money back. So
Right.
it's like, and this is not me pushing the course. This is me saying education is important. You don't have to do a course. I fully recognize that you don't have to do a course, but by
it's
learning,
Googleable. It's a lot of it's Googleable.
It is absolutely Googleable. It will just take more time. The whole point of a course is it's curated for you. So that's, anyway, what tangent was I going on? The education thing I think is really important, because yes, no matter what, no one's going to care about your money more than you're going to care about your money. Period. Absolutely. End of story. And not only that, the way that the industry is designed, the people who you hire to manage your money, they have incentive. They have incentive for you not to understand. They have incentive for you to keep needing them and using them. And it really only benefits you just learning the basics. And what I will say too, is that you can still, like, even with the car situation where you're like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to learn anything about it. There are ways to invest that require you to do almost nothing. And I think of robo-advisors. I think of target date funds. Yeah. You can still get the benefit of investing with knowing absolutely nothing about investing, and you will probably still be better off than hiring a financial advisor who you don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Or it's investing the 5 minutes to understand what a target date fund is, and then going, oh, okay.
Exactly.
And let's give you that right now. So just so you guys know.
Yes.
So Chloe's talking about index funds. What index funds is, they anchor to the performance of a particular index, which is kind of I call it group of stocks in the market, and like how they're performing. So you can actually like come along for the ride in a van full of, emerging market stocks, large cap stocks, like tech industry, whatever, real estate. You can jump on this wagon and say, I want to go along with this industry right now. And that's totally cool. The other thing you can do is you can do target date funds, which is, I love these because they will readjust what's in the fund based on when you want to retire. So you actually have years of retirement. And I'll just tell you guys, pretty much all of my retirement's in target date funds, because I'm like, you guys will handle that for me. So like, I don't have to change the allocation as I get older and remember how my login and password to Fidelity or whatever. Like, you guys will handle that for me.
Yeah. And that's such a perfect answer for folks who are like, I don't want to understand how my car works. I don't want to understand this. Yeah. I don't care. And that's fine. Then try a target date fund. Try a robo-advisor. I feel like is basically the same thing as target date fund, only you can do some level of customization. Robo-advisors could have higher fees, but most of them are 0.25%, which is going to be a fraction of what you're paying for like a financial advisor. And at least, they're investing the money with a robo-advisor. But yeah, target date funds, it's literally, they were designed to set it and forget it. And most people listening, if they have a 401k or a TSP, or they have a 403b, you probably already have target date funds. And like target date funds, I will say the downside of target date funds is that there are good ones and there are bad ones. There are some with really high fees. There are some with huge allocations in, international or bonds that are a little bit more conservative. But generally, I don't know what you have, but I love the Vanguard index funds. Vanguard, their target date index funds, they are 3-fund portfolios. They have all of the US stocks inside of it, all the international stocks inside of it, and then a huge total US bond portfolio in there as well. And it's just going to automatically reallocate the closer you get to your target date, whether that's your retirement date or whether, let's say, you used a target date fund to save for your kids' college or something, and it's 20 years down the road or to 18, whatever. So yeah, it's just like there are so many solutions out there, especially in this day and age.
So here's an interesting, because you brought up robo-advisors. Now, I don't know if this has come across your desk yet, or you kind of been contemplating this, but like, let's say someone wants to invest, and then let's say with the advent of machine learning and artificial intelligence, do you think that like the new financial advisors, the cheapest financial advisor is someone going on Chat GPT, for example, and asking what should I invest in?
Wow, I have not even thought about that. That's such a good question.
I am a 36-year-old who makes this much money, and I do this, and my goal is this, and this. Where should I put my money? And I wonder, I haven't done this yet, but I wonder what
That's a good
it
question.
tells
What it would
you.
spit out. I
Yeah,
mean, I guarantee you there will be some disclaimer.
for
That's a
sure.
good question.
Yeah.
I wonder
Like,
too,
how do I
because I'm
rob a
pretty sure
bank? Chat
ChatGPT.
GPT.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure ChatGPT, even when you sign up, says something about financials where they're
Probably.
like, you know, yeah, I'm pretty sure it does say something. And I mean, it obviously gives disclaimers too of like, this is not up to date information. I mean,
Right.
it's from 2021. That is an interesting thought. I
I
would
wonder
hope
though.
that they would refer I don't know what I would hope.
Mm.
I guess I would hope that they would refer to like something like a target date fund or a robo advisor to just get you started, but that is a very good question.
I wonder like
Huh.
how as AI develops, I wonder how much it will like I guess what I'm getting at is there's a certain element of investing in finance that I think is a science. And then there's a certain amount that's an art.
Yes.
And I think
Absolutely.
the science can be, AI adapted. Like the
Yeah.
mechanics, the allocations and other things could potentially be done because there's ways to infuse logic. But I feel like on the quote
Yes.
unquote art form, I really don't think, and it's very similar to taxes too, by the way. Like AI can probably figure out your
Yeah.
taxes, but like there are going to be certain decision points along the journey where the human has to
Yes.
get involved. And I do believe that that is
Correct.
that because it's nobody knows your goals or your aspirations or your emotions or whatever it is better than you.
Exactly. Well, exactly. So when you get to more complex topics, so do I think that AI could take some information from you and then spit out some recommendations? Yes, because that's what robo advisors do.
Yeah.
Essentially, you take a survey, you answer questions about yourself. They are limited though because of exactly what you just said. Like a question of should I put in a lump sum or should I do a small amount over a set period of time? They're going to give you the technical answer, which the technical answer is a lump sum technically performs better over the long term. But what that doesn't tell you is that if you are anxious, if you are scared about investing in the stock market, probably the last thing you want to do is take your life savings and dump it into the stock market just to see it go down 10%, where you'll then panic and pull it out, and then you'll be worse off than you were before. The better option behaviorally is to take a small chunk and invest it slowly until you get comfortable and you are sure that you're not going to panic sell when that starts to go down. So I think you're right in that behavioral, that like nuanced approach, it is going to be imperfect, but that's where there is still space to further educate yourself, no matter what. Even if Chat GPT tells you go buy these things, you're going to want to understand what those things are.
I totally agree. Nothing can really substitute a really good education for yourself, no matter what resources you're using,
Mm-hmm.
whether you need to talk to a mentor, other peers. I say use everything at your disposal. We've never had more availability of information at our fingertips, and we are in the most control and the most power to be able to enact change in what
Mm-hmm.
we want to see in our lives. And I love that there are people like you and like some of our friends and peers who are out there going, no, it can be done an easier way, not the way that like your parents try to teach you or your parents learned.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is a better way that we can explain this. And I actually love, I didn't even know this before we hit record, that we're both kind of language teachers or like we were,
Mm-hmm.
really good with language. And I go, that's an interesting element of that too, which I think does get
Well,
infused into what we do.
I think it makes us good teachers. I mean, honestly, because I mean, so much about studying English and Spanish is just that, like, you have to understand the way of the world and how
Mm-hmm.
things impact people and how, like, different subtle clues and how to really make sure
Yeah.
that you're communicating well. That is key. I have some friends who went from a very technical role to teaching, and they're not doing as well because it's hard to remember what it was like not knowing this stuff. It's hard
Yes.
to make sure these folks actually understand. But when you were in a teaching role or you were in a language role or you were in something that required a different kind of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thinking required for math and the thinking required for like reading freaking James Joyce and trying to interpret what he was talking about or whatever it is, they're different. They're just
Mhm.
different. You got to really break it down and understand in a way that makes sense to you so that then you can also deliver it to other people.
And also
I mean, not
anyone
to toot
from
our own horns, but
but I'll tell you, from both sides of that spectrum can come in the middle and can learn this stuff, because I was the math kid and you were the
absolutely.
English kid. And I was
Yep.
100%, you couldn't get me to read a book. I found every shortcut I could get through to not have to read those books because I couldn't sit still and read. And I would much rather
Yeah.
do math. And it's so funny because it doesn't matter what you think you're good at. It doesn't matter what you've proven that you like or don't like in terms of school subjects. Like, you can learn this stuff. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. It just, the only thing that will change is, or the solution is always just finding a way that it makes sense to you. There are
Agreed.
so many ways to teach that if you haven't learned it yet, it's not because you can't. It's because you haven't been delivered the information in a way that makes sense to you. That's it.
Yep.
This is a very learnable stuff.
I totally agree. Chloe, can you share with our listeners just where they can find out more about you? I know you have a blog out there, right?
Yes, I do. So everything is at clobare.com, CLOBARE. And then I'm most active and available on Instagram, which is Clo Bare Money Coach. But yeah, and we've got a podcast, we've got the blog, we've got a struggling YouTube channel. But we
And
got a little bit of everything.
what's the podcast title for those listening?
The podcast is called The Money Bear. Again, BARE.
I love it. Chloe, thank you so much for hopping on the show today. I hope our listeners took away so many great things. And if you did, if you're listening, make sure you screenshot you watching this episode or listening to this episode and post it to your Instagram stories, tag at Clo Bare Money Coach and me at Shannon K. Weinstein, and let us know what you learned today.
Heck yeah. Thanks for having me.
Hey there, are you looking for more tax and accounting help for your small business, but tired of the confusing jargon or feeling judged for your questions? This is exactly why we created a completely free Keep What You Earn community centered around this podcast. This community is a space to ask questions, hop on our monthly connection calls, and explore more information about our episodes and our guests. Click on the link in the show notes to join us in this month's call to chat with me and our other guest experts. See you there. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.